The air is thick with tension. Once again, the Israel-Lebanon border crackles with violence. The familiar thud of artillery fire echoes through the valleys. Hezbollah rockets streak across the sky, leaving trails of smoke and fear. For the soldiers of the IDF, it is a return to a battlefield they know all too well. This time, the fighting is different. It is more intense, more brutal. The enemy is dug in, determined to inflict maximum casualties. The soldiers are younger, many seeing combat for the first time. The weight of history hangs heavy in the air. Early October 2024, the conflict escalated with terrifying speed. The usually tense border erupted. Hezbollah, a powerful force within Lebanon, unleashed a barrage of rockets into Israel. The IDF responded with force, launching airstrikes and ground operations. Southern Lebanon, once a picturesque landscape, transformed into a battleground. The world watches with bated breath, hoping for a swift resolution, but on the ground there is a growing sense of dread. This conflict, it feels, could easily spiral out of control. The human cost, already significant, threatens to become unbearable. The reality of modern warfare is stark and unforgiving. Gone are the days of clear battle lines and conventional engagements. In southern Lebanon, the IDF faces an enemy that is elusive, well-armed, and deeply embedded within the civilian population. The fighting is close quarters, often house to house. Booby traps and IEDs litter the streets. Snipers lurk in the shadows. Every step forward carries the risk of sudden, violent death. The soldiers witness horrors that will stay with them long after the fighting ends. They see their comrades fall, victims of relentless attacks. The casualty rate is high. News reports trickle back to Israel of soldiers killed in action. Each life lost is a tragedy, a stark reminder of the human cost of this conflict. The physical wounds of war are easy to see. The shattered limbs, the burns, the shrapnel scars. But the unseen wounds, the psychological and emotional trauma, run far deeper. The constant pressure takes its toll. Sleep becomes a luxury, snatched in short bursts between patrols and firefights. Food is often cold, eaten hastily under the cover of darkness. Fear is a constant companion, gnawing at the edges of their minds. They witness things no one should ever have to see. The deaths of friends and comrades weigh heavily on their souls. The destruction they inflict, even in the name of self-defense, leaves an indelible mark. Many struggle to reconcile the brutality they encounter with the values they were raised with. The Israeli soldier, raised in a society that values life, now faces an enemy that celebrates death. The cognitive dissonance can be overwhelming. The psychological toll of war is a slow, insidious killer. It eats away at their humanity, leaving them emotionally drained and spiritually depleted. This conflict is as much a moral battle as a physical one. The enemy deliberately operates from within civilian areas, using innocent lives as shields. IDF soldiers are forced to make impossible choices, weighing the risk to their own lives against the potential for collateral damage. Each mission brings new dilemmas. How do you distinguish between a combatant and a civilian when they are indistinguishable? How do you justify the death of a child, even if it was unintentional? These questions haunt the soldiers, casting a long shadow over their actions. The IDF prides itself on its strict code of ethics, but the realities of war often blur the lines. Soldiers witness acts of cruelty and barbarity. They see the enemy use human shields, booby-trap homes, and target civilians. These experiences challenge their core values, forcing them to confront the darkest aspects of human nature. Section 5, Political Fault Lines, Discord on the Home Front. Adding to the soldiers' burden is the political climate back home. Israel is a nation deeply divided. The current conflict has exacerbated these divisions, sparking protests and public debate. Some demand a harsher response, urging the government to unleash the full might of the IDF. Others call for restraint, fearing a wider escalation. This internal strife weighs heavily on the soldiers. They are fighting not only for their country's survival, but also for a society that seems increasingly fractured. Many feel caught in the middle, pawns in a political game they don't fully understand. The government, grappling with mounting casualties and international pressure, struggles to find a solution. The soldiers, meanwhile, are left to confront the enemy face to face, bearing the brunt of the political impasse. Their sacrifices often feel unacknowledged, their voices lost in the cacophony of political debate. Section 6, Operational Impact, Cracks in the Wall of Defense. The exodus of soldiers from the IDF raises serious concerns about the military's long-term operational effectiveness. While the IDF remains a formidable fighting force, the loss of experienced soldiers and the growing reluctance of young Israelis to serve in combat units could have significant consequences in future conflicts. The IDF has long relied on a citizen army with mandatory service for both men and women. This system has fostered a sense of shared sacrifice and national unity. However, the increasing brutality of modern warfare and the growing political polarization within Israeli society are eroding this sense of shared purpose. The IDF is facing a crisis of morale and motivation. The exodus of soldiers is a symptom of a deeper malaise, a growing disillusionment with the seemingly endless cycle of violence. If this trend continues, it could have serious implications for Israel's ability to defend itself in an increasingly hostile region. Section 7, A Society Divided. The conflict's ripples in Israel. The conflict in Lebanon is not just a military campaign, it is a societal crisis. The images of dead and wounded soldiers, broadcast into living rooms across the country, have a profound impact on the national psyche. Families grieve for lost loved ones. Communities grapple with the invisible wounds of war. The conflict exacerbates existing social and economic divisions. The burden of service falls disproportionately on certain segments of society, while others are able to avoid combat duty. This disparity fuels resentment and undermines social cohesion. The conflict also strains Israel's international relations. The high civilian casualty rate in Lebanon draws condemnation from human rights groups and international organizations. Israel finds itself increasingly isolated on the world stage, its actions subject to intense scrutiny and criticism. In Section 8, Voices from the Front Line, Soldiers Speak Out. In the aftermath of the conflict, the voices of soldiers will be crucial in understanding the true cost of war. Their stories, often harrowing and heartbreaking, provide a glimpse into the human toll of conflict. They speak of the horrors they witnessed, the moral dilemmas they faced, and the psychological scars they carry. Some soldiers return home hailed as heroes, their bravery and sacrifice celebrated. Others struggle to readjust to civilian life, haunted by their experiences. They suffer from PTSD, nightmares, and flashbacks. Many feel alienated from a society that cannot comprehend what they have endured. Their testimonies are a powerful indictment of the human cost of war. They serve as a reminder that behind the statistics and the political rhetoric, there are real people whose lives have been irrevocably changed by conflict. Their voices must be heard if we are to break the cycle of violence and build a more peaceful future. Section 9, The Human Cost of War, A Call for Reflection. The conflict in Lebanon is a tragedy for all involved. It is a stark reminder of the human cost of war, the enduring legacy of violence, and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. As the fighting continues, it is imperative that we remember the human faces behind the headlines. The soldiers who risk their lives on the battlefield, the families who grieve for lost loved ones, and the civilians caught in the crossfire are all victims of this conflict. Their stories deserve to be heard, their sacrifices honored, and their suffering acknowledged. The path to peace is long and arduous, but it must begin with a recognition of our shared humanity. We must find the courage to break the cycle of violence and build a future where dialogue and understanding replace bombs and bullets. The alternative is unthinkable.